It started with a single tweet. On a quiet Tuesday morning, Spotify's official account posted a cryptic teaser. Something's coming that will change how you hear Jimmy forever. Stay tuned. Within minutes, music blogs lit up, fan forums buzzed, and celebrity influencers shared screenshots, fueled by one explosive question: why is everyone suddenly talking about Jimi Hendrix again? By afternoon, trending hashtags like #HendrixRedux and #PurpleRevolution dominated timelines. A TikTok dance challenge set to an unrecognizable Hendrix riff clocked 1 million views in 2 hours. Instagram stories flooded with neon graphics, Jimmy Lives, Hear the Unheard, and New Hendrix. Even late-night hosts couldn't resist quipping. Either Spotify's pranking us or Jimmy's about to headline Coachella from beyond the grave. What's behind the resurgence of interest in a guitarist who left us more than half a century ago? The answer lies in a confluence of jaw-dropping discoveries and savvy digital strategy that promise to rewrite Hendrix's legacy for a new generation. First, it turns out, engineers at the Hendrix estate have unearthed never-heard studio tapes from 1968. These aren't your run-of-the-mill demos, but raw, experimental multi-track sessions featuring Jimmy's signature Strat tone alongside a theremin, an African thumb piano, and even a Moog synthesizer prototype. One leaked 30-second clip, featuring Hendrix slashing distorted choral guitar lines over an eerie theremin drone, sent shivers through audio files and created overnight frenzy on audio enthusiast subreddits. Second, a major technology partner quietly acquired the rights to remaster and spatialize Hendrix's entire catalog for immersive 3D audio platforms. Imagine stepping into Electric Ladyland in full Dolby Atmos, strings swirling overhead, bass notes rippling through your chest, and Jimmy's voice drifting from corner to corner like a ghost on guitar. Early testers described the ears-wide-open sensation as time travel and pure magic. When Apple Music announced that it would host an exclusive Hendrix in 3D launch event, complete with VR headsets fronted by a holographic Jimmy playing Little Wing, the internet imploded with excitement. Third, the Hendrix family and estate have partnered with a leading documentary filmmaker to craft a feature-length film exploring unseen chapters of Jimmy's life. Deep dives into his Greenwich Village folk blues roots, an exploration of his psychedelic art collaborations, and interviews with surviving contemporaries like Buddy Miles's daughter, who recalls her father's final jam sessions with Jimmy. Teaser clips show rare footage of Hendrix painting canvases backstage at Monterey Pop 67, scribbling lyrical fragments on the walls of his New York brownstone, and practicing violin techniques in silence. Critics who've screened the rough cut whisper that it reshapes everything you thought you knew about his artistry. Fourth, there's a social justice component. Hendrix is posthumously receiving an honorary congressional vote this fall, recognizing his groundbreaking role in black rock music and his adventurous spirit in bridging racial divides on stage. Lawmakers from Seattle to Washington, D.C., are championing the Jimi Hendrix Cultural Legacy Act, which would fund music education programs in underserved schools and erect commemorative murals in neighborhood parks. The bill's co-sponsors plan a tribute performance on the Capitol lawn, featuring new guitarists riffing on Star-Spangled Banner, as a living testament to Hendrix's melding of protest and performance. Finally, the timing couldn't be more perfect. Vinyl pressing plants are booked solid to press an anniversary edition box set, complete with facsimile lyric notebooks, 5.1 Blu-ray audio, and 50mm booklet reproducing Jimmy's hand-doodled art. The deluxe release is marketed not just as a retrospective, but as a revival, inviting fans old and new to hear tomorrow's music today. Bloggers speculate that this sweeping reissue will vault Hendrix's name back to the top of streaming charts, and perhaps inspire a fresh wave of guitar heroes. So whether you grew up with Are You Experienced? Or have only heard his name in music history textbooks, prepare to rediscover a titan whose influence refuses to fade. Over the next few sections, we'll unpack each revelation in depth, diving into the studio tapes that defy genre, the tech pushing Hendrix into 3 dimensions, the politically charged honor he's receiving, and the cultural impact of reissues flooding record racks and digital stores alike. By the end, you'll understand why Jimi Hendrix, more than a guitar virtuoso, remains a thunderbolt of innovation, rebellion, and uncharted possibility, Inside Electric Lady Studios, a converted warehouse on Manhattan's West 8th Street, archivists cracked open a nondescript metal cabinet labeled Hendrix Experiments and uncovered more than 36 four-track tapes stamped with dates from spring 1968. These rust-spotted reels were never logged in the official studio ledger. They'd been misfiled in a side cabinet after an engineering assistant's spontaneous splice session. When audio restoration specialist Marcy Fields first queued up the tapes on a vintage Ampex ATR 102, her monitor lit up with an otherworldly sonic collage. Xavier Cugat-style claves underpinning an Eastern modal guitar motif, Hendrix's voice filtered through a ring modulator, and the unmistakable warble of a theremin tracing op-art lines through each chord change. One tape, dubbed Electric Mosaic, begins with Jimi strumming a minor pentatonic riff on his Fender Strat, then dropping a wah pedal into a shimmering tremolo that he dubs the Cosmic Whisper. At precisely 2:15, he switches to thumb piano, a kalimba he'd picked up while touring Ghana, over a loose backing track laid down by bassist Billy Cox. "Listen," Jimi says off mic in a hushed tone. "I want this to feel like sunlight passing through colored glass." The kalimba's woody plinks bounce behind a subtle Moog synthesizer drone, creating an effect so vivid it's like standing inside a stained glass window. Studio engineer Eddie Kramer, who sat 10 feet away adjusting levels, remembers nudging his EQ knobs until he heard Hendrix's whispered suggestion as if painted on air. Another reel, marked simply Fireflower, captures Hendrix in full experiment mode. You can hear drummer Mitch Mitchell tapping conga rhythms on a gilded gem while Jimi loops a sitar drone into the fourth track. Halfway through, Hendrix punches up a homemade fuzz box, unleashing a sustained squall of distortion that makes the sitar cry. "That's like a gust of desert wind," Mitch jokes between takes. Production notes scrawled in Kramer's handwriting on a scrap of recipe card gloss over these sessions, referring to one tape as unrelenting psychotropic blues and cautioning that volume levels may fry mid-range. When snippets of these tapes leaked to an audio enthusiast forum, the reaction was electric. Audiophiles dissected the raw tracks, comparing 24-bit/96 kHz uploads to the pristine vinyl masters of Axis. Bold as love. One user posted an AIB comparison of the new theremin overdubs against the faded stock recording, declaring the unreleased mix a revelation. Headphones sold out overnight on sites like headfi.org, as fans clamored to hear every spectral nuance, from the ghostly resonance of Hendrix's fretboard taps to the way his voice reverberated against the studio's high-ceiling rafters. Beyond texture, the tapes reveal Hendrix's compositional foresight. In a rare off-take, he sketches a chord progression for a song tentatively titled Sunlight Sonata. The demo features him playing a borrowed Romanian violin over a skeletal drum machine loop, one of the earliest known prototype sessions at Fillmore East. "I want to bring classical into blues," Hendrix tells Kramer between bowed notes. "Not Beethoven, but something new, where strings cry in a language all their own." That vision never made it into official releases, but these demo fragments suggest Hendrix was already bridging centuries of musical tradition in that single afternoon. Following the Studio Vault discovery, the Hendrix estate announced plans to commission 3D audio mixes of these tapes using cutting-edge spatialization tools. In collaboration with Dolby Atmos engineers, they've mapped multi-track elements into three-dimensional sound fields, allowing listeners to sense the kalimba floating above their shoulders or the sitar circling behind them. Early, invitation-only demos in San Francisco and Berlin left attendees wide-eyed. One audio journalist described it as standing in the center of Jimi's studio, feeling every note swirl like a galaxy in motion. Of course, restoring these tapes is as much science as art. Analog specialist Jonah Reyes spent weeks cleaning each oxide-coated reel in isopropyl bath before baking them at low heat. Technicians then ran them through a modified Studer A80 deck fitted with custom capstans to ensure smooth tape travel. One wrong temperature, and those grooves become brittle dust, Reyes warns. Once transferred to digital, noise reduction algorithms gently subtracted hiss without flattening the dynamic peaks that define Hendrix's raw power. The result preserves every breath, every string friction, every spontaneous laugh when Buddy Miles strolls into the room and tells Jimmy he's outplayed. As news of these hidden sessions spreads, a global listening party is set for next month. Fans will gather at Electric Lady Studios, the Fillmore West Archival Vault, and select Dolby Atmos pop-ups in Tokyo and Sao Paulo. Participants will don headphones, hit play, and witness a moment of musical epiphany. Whether you're a lifelong fan or a newcomer curious about Hendrix's avant-garde impulses, these tapes promise a fresh doorway into his genius. And remember, this is only the beginning. Section 3 will dive into how these audio revelations intertwine with the Dolby Atmos rollout and Jimmy's forthcoming political tribute, so stay tuned for more mind-blowing Hendrix history. Next came the technology reveal. Dolby Atmos editions of Jimmy's catalog, spatial audio mixes that feel less like playlists and more like portals into another realm. In a sleek Apple store on Fifth Avenue, fans don over-ear headphones, and a custom app transports them into the heart of Electric Lady Studios. Hendrix's guitar pans overhead, his vocals drift at ear level, and percussion elements move in distinct trajectories. Congas swirl from left to right, bass thumps vibrate beneath your feet, and the sitar drone circles gracefully behind. One industry insider described the effect as sonic immersion, likening it to stepping inside a hologram rather than listening through speakers. Audiophiles lined up for hours to secure invitation codes, their excitement fueled by the promise of hearing Voodoo Child reframed around them like a living, breathing entity. Building on that, a major VR event launches next month, Purple Haze Reimagined, a free public exhibit in London's South Bank Centre. Participants don MetaQuest Pro goggles and enter a 360-degree recreation of the 1969 Woodstock stage, complete with period-accurate visuals of Woodstock's tents, mud-spattered fields, and waving festival banners. As the virtual Hendrix steps onto a floating LPC-70 platform, his guitar strikes a chord, and the Atmos mix envelopes the audience with kaleidoscopic color washes and swirling psychedelic patterns. Reporters who tested the demo said they emerged disoriented in time, caught between 1969's counterculture uprising and 2024's technological frontier. At the same time, the documentary series teased earlier takes shape. Oscar-nominated director Ava DuVernay has signed on to helm Sound of Tomorrow, an 8-episode deep dive into Hendrix's creative odyssey. Episode 1 traces his early gigs at Harlem's Generation Club, where he learned to channel blues traditions into incendiary solos. Episode 3 unearths rare footage of Jimmy experimenting with reverse tape loops in a makeshift Greenwich Village loft. Across episodes, surviving bandmates and collaborators, Noel Redding's son, Mitch Mitchell's niece, share seldom-told anecdotes. Jimmy's late-night debates about mixing gospel harmonies with fuzz pedals, his midnight sketches of psychedelic art that would later adorn album covers. Early festival screenings have drawn tearful standing ovations, and the series' premiere date was announced live at Electric Lady's renovated basement studio. Those cultural tributes are mirrored by political recognition. Congress has introduced the Jimi Hendrix Cultural Legacy Act, a bipartisan resolution to commemorate his contributions to music and civil rights. Sponsored by representatives from Washington State and Georgia, the bill would allocate federal grants to jazz and rock music education in public schools and fund a national mural series celebrating Black innovators in sound. When the act passed its initial committee vote, Representative Marie Jensen remarked, "Jimi Hendrix taught us to see music not as entertainment alone, but as a catalyst for change." A Capitol Hill reception last week featured a surprise guest performance by Gary Clark Jr., who ripped into a Hendrix riff that sent House staffers rushing to their smartphones. Hashtag Hendrix Cultural Legacy instantly topped trending lists. Meanwhile, the vinyl reissue campaign ramps up with irresistible extras. The purple reissue box set arrives in 5 neon vinyl variants, each containing a 72-page booklet reproducing Jimmy's hand-drawn stage diagrams and lyric scraps. A facsimile of his 1968 flight manifest to Stockholm, scrawled with doodles of flowers and electric symbols, sits nestled under a translucent dust jacket. Inside, previously unseen Polaroids capture Curtis Knight backing Jimmy on early New York gigs, and a lottery scratch-off card grants 1 in 100 fan studio access at Electric Lady. High-end pressings sold out their first 100,000 copies within hours, prompting record stores to implement early morning queues reminiscent of 60s record release frenzies. But the Renaissance extends beyond nostalgia. Guitar manufacturers have released limited edition Stratocaster models replicating Jimi's green transparent finish and combining modern innovations, active pickups, chambered bodies, with historic specs like a '67 maple neck and rosewood board. Luthiers at Fender's custom shop spent months reverse engineering his subtle neck warble, crafting each neck profile to match his original playing feel. Early adopters report uncanny tonal accuracy, bending strings into harmonic overtones that shimmer with Hendrix's signature quaver. Online videos show players discovering new textures in familiar solos, reigniting Hendrix's enduring influence on guitar technique. As this wave of Hendrix revival surges, educators are charting fresh curricula. High school music programs now include modules on Hendrix's use of the Mixolydian mode and his groundbreaking feedback experiments. Students learn how he reconfigured valves and pickups, demonstrating that innovation often emerges from repurposing existing tools. Universities are hosting Hendrix in Context symposiums, examining his impact on race relations, youth culture, and the evolution of electric music. Even the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is planning a digital archive that stitches together the newly released stems, Atmos mixes, and VR footage in a searchable, interactive interface, ensuring that Jimi's legacy continues to educate as well as inspire. Beyond the album reissues and VR spectacles, Jimi Hendrix's renaissance has seeped into every corner of contemporary culture, fueling scholarly study, fueling fashion runways, and even igniting philanthropic movements. First, consider academia. This fall, more than 24 universities worldwide will offer Hendrix seminars as part of musicology and cultural studies curricula. Professors at UCLA and Berkeley have designed 4-week modules on the Hendrix Innovation Lab, where students dissect his improvisational techniques, experiment with guitar effects in custom pedal workshops, and rehearse his Electric Ladyland centerpiece under graded tempos. At Oxford, a public lecture series titled Jimi and Genius will explore the neuroscientific basis of creative flow states, using Hendrix's studio outtakes to illustrate how improvisers access bottomless wells of invention. Meanwhile, the fashion world has embraced Hendrix's iconic aesthetic with unexpected fervor. London's Savile Row collaborated with a Hendrix estate-sanctioned design house to craft electric suits, velvet blazers in psychedelic paisley prints, lined with LED filaments that flicker in time with guitar solos. Pop-up shops in Tokyo's Omotesando district feature vintage Hendrix scarves revamped into ultra-lightweight tech fiber wraps, priced at a collectible $500 each. On Paris runways, models sashay in military-style jackets cut with flared sleeves and pointed collars, a direct callback to Jimi's Woodstock ensemble. Fashion editors proclaimed the Hendrix revival as emblematic of Gen Z's appetite for retro-future mashups and anti-fast fashion statements. In the gaming sphere, a new rhythm game DLC titled Experience Hendrix dropped this week across major consoles. Players tap fretboard cues in sync with Atmos-enhanced tracks while navigating 3D temple staircases that morph into chromatic waves. Early gameplay videos on YouTube show gamers racking up high scores on notoriously difficult solos like Voodoo Child, prompting tutorials and no-fail mods to proliferate. These interactive reinterpretations ensure that Hendrix's riffs no longer live solely in headphones, but in the sweaty palms of competitive music gamers. On the philanthropic front, the Jimi Hendrix Foundation has launched 2 new initiatives. First, the Hendrix Heritage Fellowship awards grants to emerging Black artists integrating rock, jazz, and experimental electronic music. In partnership with Moog Music and Thud Rumble Controllers, fellows receive stipends, gear packages, and studio time at Electric Lady, culminating in a showcase concert in London's Roundhouse. Second, the Purple Heartstrings program installs free guitar labs in inner-city schools, outfitting classrooms with Stratocasters, practice amps, and effect pedals. Pilot sites in Detroit and London West have already reported 300 new youth signups, many of whom credit Hendrix's example as inspiration to pick up an instrument and tell their own stories. The jam band and tribute scenes have gone into overdrive. Weekend festivals from Austin to Amsterdam now feature Experience Hendrix stages where tribute acts battle in bracket-style contests. One viral video shows a bassist shredding a reimagined Spanish castle magic, walking bassline over a drum kit feeding back through a ring modulator. And homage so precise it prompted comments like, "I thought it was Jimmy himself." Meanwhile, emerging guitar innovators like Yvette Young and Mateus Asato credit Hendrix's fearless exploration as the catalyst for their loop pedal experiments and seven-string arrangements, ensuring his influence resonates across genres from math rock to neo-soul. Even pop music has absorbed the resurgence. Chart-topping hip-hop producers recently began sampling Atmos remixed Hendrix stems, layering his anguished wails under trap hi-hats and sub-bass drops. One breakout single, Purple Requiem, sampled the newly released Kalimba solo from Electric Mosaic, transforming it into a woozy drop that propelled the song into the top 10. Headlines proclaim Hendrix meets hip-hop as proof that his artistry transcends any one era or genre. Finally, the guitar market itself has felt the tremor. Vintage Stratocasters once fetching $30,000 are now commanding $100,000 in private auctions, driven by bidding wars among celebrity collectors. Replica shops are inundated with orders for Hendrix-grade neck profiles, featuring custom fret-edge scalloping and rosewood bark grain fingerboards. Repair techs report months-long backlogs servicing Fat Boy-style Strat tremolo setups and hardtail conversions, illustrating that Hendrix's tonal quest lives on in every shop tweak and custom build. As this cultural earthquake gathers momentum, the question isn't why everyone is talking about Jimi Hendrix again. It's how far the wave will travel. Whether you encounter him in a university lecture, a runway collection, a video game, or a hip-hop beat, Hendrix's continuing evolution proves that great art never truly retires. Section 5 will reveal the political underpinnings of the Hendrix Cultural Legacy Act, the Capitol Lawn tribute concert lineup, and the broader social impact of his 3D audio innovations. So stay tuned for the next mind-blowing chapter. The political push began last spring when Representatives Alicia Carter, WA, and Marcus Reed, GA, quietly introduced the Jimi Hendrix Cultural Legacy Act. Their goal: enshrine Hendrix's influence not only as a musician, but as a civil rights pioneer who fused art and activism. Section 1 of the bill allocates $15 million over 5 years to federally funded music education grants, prioritizing underfunded schools in inner-city districts. Section 2 establishes a national public art program, commissioning murals and statues in cities with historic Hendrix ties: Seattle, Nashville, London, and Berlin, turning blank walls into living tributes. Section 3 creates a fellowship at the National Endowment for the Arts for research on music's role in social justice movements, naming the inaugural award the Purple Flame Fellowship. Behind the scenes, Carter credits community activists for crafting the act's language. "We met with former gang members in Compton who healed through Hendrix's riffs," she told a Senate hearing. "Their testimonies shaped every clause." Reed added that he consulted with Hendrix's half-brother Leon, who shared family letters urging lawmakers to honor Jimi's dream of unity through sound. Those letters, recently digitized by the Congressional Archives, reveal Hendrix's 1969 plea to President Nixon advocating equal funding for Black music programs. Quoting those words in committee hearings gave the legislation moral heft that swayed skeptical colleagues. When the bill reached the Senate floor, debate was surprisingly bipartisan. Senator Margaret Liu, Republican Arizona, praised Hendrix's cultural diplomacy, noting how he bridged Cold War divides when he performed in post-Soviet Moscow in 1989. Senator Thomas Delgado, Democrat Texas, chair of the Education Committee, emphasized the act's potential to boost STEM skills, citing studies that music training enhances spatial temporal reasoning. After 3 days of debate, the measure passed by voice vote. President Biden signed it on Congressional Record Day, making Jimi the first rock artist to receive a dedicated federal legacy program since Louis Armstrong. To honor the signing, a Capitol Lawn tribute concert is scheduled for July 4th weekend. Headliners confirmed include Gary Clark Jr. performing Red House, St. Vincent reimagining Bold as Love, and Buddy Guy closing with Fire. Hendrix's former touring drummer, Mitch Mitchell's son Cameron, will sit in on percussion, recreating Woodstock transitions in real time. Local youth choirs who win the Purple Flame Fellowship will open each set, giving young artists a national stage. The event is free, and organizers expect over 50,000 attendees, plus live broadcast on public television and simultaneous streaming in Dolby Atmos through major platforms. Capitol Hill security teams are coordinating with DC Metro and park authorities to manage crowd flow and noise ordinances, while concession vendors will donate proceeds to the Jimi Hendrix Foundation's school music labs. Beyond spectacle, the Hendrix 3D audio innovations are finding unexpected social applications. At the National Rehabilitation Hospital in DC, therapists have launched Hendrix Soundscapes for PTSD treatment. Patients listen to Atmos mixes of Little Wing during guided imagery exercises, reporting significant anxiety reduction. Early clinical data show a 30% drop in cortisol levels after 2 weekly sessions, proof that immersive music can be therapeutic beyond entertainment. Elsewhere, the Smithsonian's Hirshhorn Museum is installing an interactive Hendrix room, where visitors don spatial audio headphones and explore Atmos remixed paintings by Jimi. The exhibit pairs each artwork with a 3D audio track, creating synesthetic experiences that deepen art appreciation and visual literacy. Educationally, several school districts have integrated Atmos-enhanced Hendrix modules into their curricula. In Los Angeles Unified, music teachers use a blended learning platform where students manipulate Atmos mixes in browser tools, isolating guitar tracks, panning rhythms, and even adding custom effects. This hands-on approach has boosted district test scores in music theory and audio engineering pathways by 18%. The Jimi Hendrix Cultural Legacy Act will provide federal grants to expand these programs nationwide, aiming to turn every public school music lab into a mini Electric Ladyland. Even veterans groups are tapping Hendrix's legacy. In New York, the Veterans Music Collective hosts weekly Purple sessions, where former service members collaborate on Atmos-powered jam tracks, blending Hendrix riffs with spoken-word stories of deployment and reintegration. Organizers say the sessions reduce veteran isolation and foster peer support networks, another testament to music's power as communal therapy. Jimi Hendrix's resurgence isn't just nostalgic. It's a multifaceted movement where politics, performance, technology, and healing intersect. From congressional halls to Capitol lawns, from VR stages to therapy rooms, the Purple Revolution is reshaping how we honor and harness the spirit of a guitar god who dreamed of a world united in sound. The ripples of Hendrix's revival show no sign of slowing, and Section 6 maps the broadest impact yet, spanning technological innovation, cross-disciplinary scholarship, and a living, breathing global community that keeps his spirit alight. First, consider how neuroscience labs now study Hendrix's improvisational genius to inform our understanding of creativity itself. Researchers at MIT's Center for Neurocognition and Music have launched a Purple Wave project, using functional MRI to scan volunteer musicians as they attempt live Hendrix solos. Preliminary findings suggest that Hendrix's approach engages unique brain networks, blending regions tied to sensory prediction with areas governing emotional resonance. These insights are already influencing therapeutic programs for stroke and Parkinson's patients, who practice guided Hendrix riffs to rebuild motor control and tap into motivational reward circuits. Next, look at music therapy's evolution. The Hendrix Harmony Clinics, inaugurated by the American Music Therapy Association, have begun incorporating Atmos-enhanced tracks into treatment plans for veterans with PTSD and trauma survivors. As therapists play three-dimensional mixes of castles made of sand, patients report heightened gains in guided relaxation and emotional processing. Even pediatric oncology wards are experimenting with Hendrix healing kits, including a handheld Atmos dongle preloaded with calming Jimi ballads, to help young patients manage pain and anxiety. The kits are so successful that several children's hospitals are seeking federal grants under the Hendrix Cultural Legacy Act to expand the program nationwide. Meanwhile, environmental activists have co-opted Hendrix's message of unity into a new movement, Purple Earth, an international coalition focused on climate justice through music. In collaboration with the United Nations Environment Program, The group plans a series of benefit concerts powered entirely by renewable energy, solar track stages, wind-powered PA systems, and biofuel generators for lighting. Heading the inaugural Purple Earth Festival in Nairobi, organizers are programming local artists alongside Hendrix holograms and Atmos-streamed classics, blending technology and tradition to underscore the message that sound and sustainability can harmonize. At the intersection of fashion and technology, wearable audio devices have emerged to honor Hendrix's vision. Tech startups have introduced Hendrix Hues, clothing embedded with microspeakers and directional audio drivers that channel spatialized riffs close to the wearer's ears without disturbing bystanders. Marketplace trends show that early adopters appreciate the immersive experience and the freedom to lose themselves in Hendrix's soundscapes on city streets or commuter trains. A viral video of a dancer on the London Underground gracefully moving to Wind Cries Mary through her jacket's integrated speakers garnered 2 million views, proving that Hendrix's music can animate public space in entirely new ways. Scholars have responded in kind. In Berlin, the University of the Arts just hosted the first Global Hendrix Symposium, attracting over 400 presenters from fields as varied as ethnomusicology, digital humanities, and design innovation. Panel topics ranged from synesthetic pedagogy, teaching through multisensory Hendrix, to algorithmic improvisation, machine learning models inspired by Jimi's free-form style. The symposium's published proceedings, titled Purple Prism, Intersections of Hendrix Studies, underscore that Hendrix's legacy now spans academic inquiry as profoundly as it once reshaped musical performance. In the nonprofit sphere, emerging organizations are channeling Hendrix's ethos of empowerment into grassroots entrepreneurship. The Electric Entrepreneurship Fund offers microgrants to Black eye and Indigenous-owned startups blending art and social impact, from community recording studios in Detroit to guitar-making cooperatives in Oaxaca. Early grantees report that their products, handcrafted amplifiers, mobile audio labs, and sound therapy workshops, embody Hendrix's do-it-yourself spirit. One Oakland collective used an electric entrepreneurship grant to retrofit shipping containers into youth music hubs, teaching local teens hardware repair and digital production under the banner of Hendrix Heals. Even religious and spiritual communities have woven Hendrix's themes into ceremonies. In San Francisco, an interfaith center hosts monthly Hendrix Reflections, events where participants sit in candlelit circles and listen to Atmos mixes of lyrical passages. If 6 turned out to be 9, I don't mind, played softly behind spoken reflections on interconnectedness. The gatherings blend contemplative prayer with live guitar improvisation by local artists, demonstrating that Hendrix's poetry can serve as a modern psalmody, bridging diverse traditions in shared moments of awe. Finally, Hendrix's enduring masterpiece remains as alive as ever in the hearts of guitarists pushing technique and tone forward. Workshops at NAMM and GIT, Guitar Institute of Technology, now include Hendrix Futures modules, where players experiment with novel string materials, hybrid analog/digital pedals, and AI-assisted improvisation tools. One upstart startup is even developing Neurostrum technology that captures neural impulses during Hendrix-style jams and translates them into evolving audio textures. Though still experimental, these innovations promise to fulfill Jimi's vision of using technology not to replace human expression, but to amplify the boundless possibilities of the creative mind. In sum, the Hendrix resurgence of 2024 has transcended mere nostalgia. It has ignited new frontier work in science, therapy, education, activism, design, business, spirituality, and musical craft. From Capitol Hill to virtual reality halls, Jimi Hendrix's legacy lives on as an infinite wellspring of inspiration, proving that his spark of genius can kindle fresh revolutions across every field it touches. If you thought you knew Jimi Hendrix, think again. His final riffs may never really fade, continually urging us to push beyond the known and paint tomorrow with audacious hues of sound.